you may know that I recently got an iCube laser engraver from Sculpt Fun, and I've been enjoying playing around with it and seeing all the things that it can do. So recently I made some laser engraved tin can earrings. But I know a lot of you don't have a laser engraver, so I wanted to experiment with some different ways of getting the same result. So the first step is to prepare your material, and I'm just using a regular tin can here. I think this had vegetables or something in it. And so to prepare the material, I like to rust and flatten this into a metal sheet. I've done a full tutorial on how you can rust and flatten the sheets, and I will link to that in the description box. You don't have to rust the metal. You can work with the raw tin can. It is just a little more difficult to work with. You will have a lot more ribs in it that you can't flatten out as easily, and you just have a stiffer material. But you can work with the tin can in its raw form if you'd rather do that. I like to use the rusted pieces because I like to put a little paper towel painting on them to add some color, but that's just certainly a personal preference. So go ahead and check that video in the description if you're interested in learning more about rusting and flattening the cans. So to add a little color, you can use any acrylic paint. I like the metallics, the copper and the gold and the silver, but you can use any color. And I'm just going to use a little piece of paper towel and blot it onto the metal. Now, the reason that I like to use the rusted metal is because I like to just put kind of a thin coat of color on so that you can see some of the darker colors of the metal coming through. So I'm just going to drop a little bit of paint on here in a couple spots. We may need a little bit more in a minute, and then I'm just going to blot it around all over the metal. And I don't really want to get full coverage onto the material. It does lighten up a little bit when it dries as well. And you do want enough color on there so that your design will show up. So I'll let that dry, and I'm going to go ahead and paint the other side in the same way, but you can see how fast that is. In addition to your metal painted pieces, you're going to need some earring templates with some art on them. So I started with these with just some different patterns on the material, and you can see they're quite large. So I did go ahead and make an additional template with some additional art pieces and in a smaller size. And I will link to both of these on my blog post. And you'll be able to get to that link in the description box of this video if you're interested in using these templates. I'm going to be testing out these 3 different papers, and I'm going to go quickly over this one because it's older. I'm not sure if it's even still available, but I did want to include it just because both of these say that they're tattoo paper, but they are quite different when you go to apply the image to your metal or to your skin, either one. The last one is water slide paper, and I've never used water slide paper before, so this has been sort of a fun experiment for me to just try all 3 of these different papers to transfer the image to give the impression of engraving. So you do need an inkjet printer for all of these processes, and this first paper, I honestly have no idea how much I paid for it because it literally is years and years old. But the interesting thing about it is that it only came in 4x5 sheets of paper. So I had to tape it to a regular sheet of paper and run it through my printer, which was easy enough to do. But here's a piece that's ready to apply to some metal. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these images out. You can see I printed on both sides, but this was the wrong side to print on. It seemed to me you should print on the shiny side, but when I read the instructions, you were supposed to print on the matte side. And I'm differentiating this tattoo paper with the other tattoo paper because the other paper is a 2-part paper, and this is just more of a sticker kind of paper. So this tattoo paper will peel off like a sticker and go on to to the metal this way. So really this is just like a sticker. I don't know if you can see how thin this is, but it's kind of hard to work with. And the paper on the back is quite thick, so it doesn't want to peel off very easily. So I'm going to go ahead and place the tip down and then try to carefully peel off the rest of this backing paper. But this sticker kind of stretches, so you want to be careful. Now the other thing, because I'm using the tin can, it's got some ribs in it, I like to use my embossing tool to kind of carefully go back in and press down and push out the air bubbles. You do want to be a little bit gentle because you can rip through all of these materials. So that's a little bit hard to see, but you can see that I've got the image on there, and I might need to work a little bit more on getting a few of those air bubbles out. But because this painting and the texture of the can itself, it can be a little tricky to get all the air bubbles out, and some of them are just kind of camouflaged into the design. So that's design application method number 1. Method number 2 is what I'm calling two-part tattoo paper, and that's because it comes with the sheet of paper, which is full-sized and fits in your printer, which is nice. And so you're going to print on this side, and then it also has a sheet with adhesive on it. Now, for some reason in the instructions they call this B foil. I don't know why, because it's plastic, but I'll show you how to use these two papers in a minute. The one thing I will say is that this is the one method where, if it matters, you're going to need to reverse your artwork. So if you have any wording or you want your artwork facing a particular way, you're going to want to reverse it or flip it in order for it to come out correctly on your finished item. So I'm going to be working with my larger art designs here. So you can see this is printed on the tattoo paper, and I'm just going to use this set of earrings here. If you wanted to, you could leave these together, but I just think the smaller piece that you work with, the easier it is. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those in half. And then I'm going to grab what they're calling B foil, or the plastic paper, and I want a piece that's the same size as my artwork. And then I like to work on this tile because what you want to do is you're going to lay your artwork down, and then you're going to peel back the paper. You can see there's a shiny side to this, hopefully, and you're just going to peel back the paper or the plastic layer. And as you do that, you should see some adhesive kind of pulling off. Hopefully you can see that. So here again, you don't want to be right up against your art. You don't want to have your art completely cut out. You want to have a little bit of an edge, because I don't know if you can see right there where the adhesive is pulled away. So I want to make sure that's not on part of my artwork. So I'm just going to line up the corners. The edges of the material don't really need to match. You just need to make sure that you're covering your entire piece of art with the plastic. And then I like to use my scraper just to make sure that I've got that plastic layer really smooth and tightly adhered to the design. And with this piece of art, it's going to go onto the metal this way rather than right side up. So I like to trim most of the excess off just so that I can line things up and fit them onto the metal a little bit easier. And it helps if you don't, the less adhesive you have, the easier it is to slide this paper off. So I'm ready to apply these to my metal, and what I want to do is peel off the plastic layer that I just put on there. And what it's doing is it's leaving the adhesive on your artwork and peeling away from the plastic layer. So when you're doing this method, you want to make sure that you've got your piece positioned exactly where you want it, because you're not going to be able to shift it around. And because this is meant for a tattoo or to go on your skin, the next step is to wet it. But because I have ridges in my metal, I want to go back to my embossing tool. And once I've got the piece secured to my metal, I want to go back in and just make sure that I've got it pressed into those grooves. And if you want to, you can use your scraper on it too, just to make sure that you've got it pressed down nicely onto the metal. And when you're ready, you're going to take a paintbrush. I've used a paintbrush. You can use a sponge if you want to. And you're just going to wet the backing and leave it for 30 seconds. And after 30 seconds, you can try to sort of shift the paper. And if you can feel it moving pretty easily, you can go ahead and just slide the paper off of your artwork. And if you have any air bubbles, you can go ahead and just kind of smooth them out with the little bit of moisture on your paintbrush. So that is application method number 2. The final method is the inkjet water slide paper, and it's undoubtedly the most suitable option. But I just wanted to let you know that you can use those other 2 options if you have them, or if that's what you have available. I'm going to switch to my other piece of artwork here and just work with a smaller piece of art. The one thing about the water slide paper, at least with the inkjet, I don't know if they have laser jet water slide paper, but the paper that I purchased, I didn't know this beforehand, but you have to print and then spray a sealer on to coat the ink so that it won't bleed. It says to use a spray varnish. I did not have a spray varnish, or I don't know what the difference is between sealer and varnish, and the internet wasn't super helpful. It seemed like it was kind of the same thing. So I just happened to have this Americana sealer matte finish that I did use on my art. Just be aware that if you're using inkjet water slide paper and you've never used it before, you do need to have a sealer as well. So I'm going to work with these little butterflies. I got this second template pretty close together, but I think it'll be okay. You do want to cut out your art kind of outside your black lines. And I'm just going to use one of my little scraps of tin here that I painted with some metallic blue. I'm going to trim off some of the excess, but it's actually helpful to have a little bit of excess paper to grab a hold of. And for this method, once you've printed on your paper and you've got it sealed with at least 3 coats of spray sealer, you're going to go ahead and just drop it into some room temperature water and leave it for 30 seconds. It does curl right up when you first put it in the water, and then it will sort of flatten out as it's getting ready and loosening from the paper. So what I like to do is, when you grab a hold of it, you can kind of feel that the film layer that has your print on it is sliding a little bit, hence the name, undoubtedly. And I like to slide the art just a little bit off of the paper backing so that I can kind of lay it in place and grab a hold of it. And then it's very easy just to pull the liner paper out from underneath. One other nice thing about this paper is that you can adjust or shift your artwork slightly if you want to. And you're supposed to actually have a layer of water on the metal. I forgot to do that this time. But that also helps you to kind of readjust the art if you want to do that. Again, I have some ridges in this metal, so I'm just going to gently brush a little bit of water over the top to try to press the art down into those grooves a little bit. The directions say to use sort of a scraper to flatten it or press it down, but I found that that's what kind of scraped off my art a little bit. So I'm just using my paintbrush to kind of press it down. Now the one drawback of this paper is that you do need to let it dry for 3 or 4 hours. So a couple of final thoughts on these papers. As I mentioned, this is an older option. I'm not sure if they even make this type of tattoo paper anymore, but just know that if you do have some or you run across it for a really great price, you can use it to make sort of a engraved look on a metal. These other two papers are obviously better options just because they are the size of a regular printer paper. The tattoo paper is quite a bit more expensive. It's about $1.60 per sheet, and the inkjet water slide paper is about 68 cents per sheet. Now with the inkjet paper you do need the additional sealer, so you're going to want to calculate that in as well. And if for some reason you wanted tattoo paper and you also wanted to try this craft, you could use just the tattoo paper. For this next step, you're going to want a pair of tin snips and something to catch your metal scraps in. So the sticker tattoo paper you can cut out right away. The two-part tattoo paper you're going to want to give a little time to dry to. And then I have a piece of the water slide paper that I've allowed to dry overnight. I did do this on the lid of the can just to let you know you don't have to just use the sides of the can. You can use the other parts as well. So all you need to do for all three of these is to just cut carefully along the line. And I like to try to cut that black line all the way off. And when you're cutting the tin, you do kind of want to work at it a little bit at a time. So you may not be able to just make your curves as if you were cutting a piece of paper. You may have to get some of the metal out of your way first. So just take your time and cut carefully along the lines. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, please click the like button to help promote this video out to other viewers. Also, if you haven't already, I'd love to have you join my YouTube community by clicking that subscribe button. And if you'd like to never miss an Upcycled Design Lab project, check the description box for a place to sign up to receive the Upcycled Design Lab newsletter. So I don't know if you can tell any difference. I can see a little bit of a difference, but this is the water slide paper, this is the two-part tattoo paper, and this is the sticker tattoo paper. And you can definitely see a couple of bubbles in the sticker tattoo paper, and for some reason the water slide paper seems to have just a little bit more shine to it than the two-part tattoo paper. After you've cut out your pieces, you may find that you want to kind of hammer them flat again, and if you decide to do that, you just need a hard surface and a regular hammer, and you can just gently tap the edges to smooth them back out. Also, on these pieces where you have a pointed tip, you can use sandpaper or some kind of grinding stone to grind that tip down to a more rounded shape. So once you have your pieces nice and flat and the edges are smoothed with the filing and the hammering, you're ready to go ahead and punch a hole. And if you have a small drill, that might be a better way to do this. But I'm just going to be using a really small nail and my hammer. And you want to get very close to the tip of your piece unless you have a fairly large jump ring, because if you go too far down, you're going to need a larger jump ring. So I just eyeball my position and then try to tap a little hole in my metal. So once you have your hole made, the bottom side is going to be really rough. And the way that I smooth that out is by flipping my piece over and just tapping the hole gently. And then sometimes you may want to go back in with the nail just to make your hole a little bit bigger. but you can kind of do a combination of pounding the nail through to make the hole and then flattening the hole out with your hammer so that you don't have a rough and raw edge where the hole is. So I'm going to show you a few other design options that you can choose to do. If you want to, you can add a little painted edge to your pieces, and I just have mine staked onto a toothpick through the hole that we just punched. And I'm going to put just a little bit of paint in a line across my tile here. You want your earrings staked onto the toothpick tight enough that they're not going to swing around. So you want to push them down so that they won't swing. And then I'm just going to gently tap the edge through my paint so that I'm getting a little bit of a gold layer around the edge. And then you just want to go ahead and stick this in a piece of styrofoam or something and let your paint dry. Another option you have is to shape your earrings. You can certainly leave them flat like this, but I also like to add a little bit of shape to my earrings sometimes. And I did an original video using the tin cans, and I have a lot of other shaping ideas in that video, which I will link to as well. But this shape lends itself really well to just kind of curving it. And you can use pretty much anything. You just want to gently kind of press the metal, keeping it parallel to the curve that you're making, and just kind of shape the earring so that you have a little bit of a contour in the shape. And particularly if you're using the rusted metal, it's very easy to shape around and just shape it with your fingers. If you are using raw metal, you may have a little harder time doing this shaping, but you can probably still put a curve in the raw metal. So that's one shape you can do. Another way to shape the earrings is by folding them, and I like to do that on my earrings that have sort of a point on both sides, because you can line up with the ruler, just line up your center points and just carefully fold the metal. And then if you want to, you can kind of open it back up. But then you've got just another way of shaping the earring. You want to make sure you've got your holes put in your metal before you do the shaping. So those are two ways that you can add additional shape to your earrings. Another way you can change up the look of your earrings is certainly you can just have single plies of metal, but you can also do what I call stacking. So you can use pieces that are different sizes to make additional earring styles. And you can combine these different methods into your earrings. So here I've got a folded piece with the painted edge, and I've also got a layered piece for it. And you don't have to limit yourself to just stacking 2 layers. You can do them with 3 layers. So your options are really unlimited as far as all of the different designs that you can create. So once you have all of your embellishments completed, the final step before assembly is to add some finish to the earrings. And I'm going to be using this DuraClear satin varnish. DecoArt makes DuraClear in matte, gloss. You can get it in a lot of different finishes, but I just am going to be using the satin. And here again, I want to put my pieces onto a toothpick. And I want to stake them again tightly onto the toothpick so that they won't swing around. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of varnish on both sides and set them aside to dry. You don't need very much of this varnish. It is not super thick, so it will drip, and you want to be a little cautious about that. I like to have my design side up so that I can make sure that I do it last and that it's not got any drips on it. But this allows you to finish both sides at the same time and only have to let them dry once. Once your sealer coat has dried, you're ready to go ahead and assemble your earrings. So I'm just going to be using some antique finish earring fish hooks. I've got 2 6mm jump rings and 2 4mm jump rings and 2 pairs of needle nose pliers. So I'm going to remove my earrings from the toothpicks, and I'm going to start with my smaller earring piece and my larger jump ring, and I just need to find the opening. If you've never worked with jump rings, you want to just be sure to twist them open and not pull them open. So I'm just going to grab them on both sides of the jump ring and just twist that split open. And then I'll attach my smaller piece, and then I'll add the larger piece on the back. And then I'm just going to do the reverse motion to close my jump ring. And I'm adding this second jump ring just because I like there to be a little swing and dangle in the earrings. If you want to just use the one jump ring, you can add your earring hook right to that first jump ring. Just going to do the same motion to open my jump ring. Hook it through the larger jump ring. So when you're attaching your earring hook, you want to make sure that the curved portion is facing or going the same direction as the front of your earring. Otherwise, you'll have your earring hanging backwards. And once you have it on there, you can just go ahead and close off your jump ring. And you've got your first finished earring. So here's just a last look at the different methods I've used for adding a laser engraved look to the tin can earrings. This first pair I actually did engrave on my laser engraver. This second pair is the sticker tattoo paper. This pair is the 2-part tattoo paper, and then the last pair are the water slide paper. So you can see you get pretty good results from all of these methods, and if you don't have a laser engraver, you can certainly try one of the other 3 methods. So I hope you can see how many options there are and how many different designs you could make using some of these methods. It's just sort of an endless stream of possibilities because you can come up with your own artwork, you can make different shaped earrings, you can shape the earrings, you can add extra paint to the earrings, you can stack the shapes together. There are just an endless number of ways to make different earring designs using faux engraving and tin cans. You can check out more from the Upcycled Design Lab in the links below. Be sure to check all the extra resources in the description box. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.